Hi, I'm Lisa Crochets, and in this video I'll be showing you how to make a very cute sheep plushie just like this. Now, in terms of materials, you will need a lot of white yarn, and I'm using some brown to make the face, the ears, the legs, but you can also do it in black or gray, just any color that you would like your sheep to be. You will need some scissors, a darning needle, a hook that matches your yarn, a stitch marker, and some safety eyes. Now I'm using honey bunny yarn from Hobby, and I'm using a 4mm hook to match with it. You can use any yarn that you like. Just keep in mind that if you use a yarn of a different size and a different size hook, the size of your final plushie will also be affected. So it might turn out smaller or bigger than mine. So keep that in mind. And with the safety eyes, I'm using 12mm ones. But again, you will have to match the size to the yarn that you're using. You will of course also need some plush filling and some thin yarn to sew on a nose. So before we get started, I just want to mention that this pattern will use a lot of bubble stitches, and it's not necessarily a difficult stitch, but it is a little bit more difficult to work with because it's harder to control your tension. So if you've never made a bubble stitch before, I definitely recommend to check out a tutorial first on how to make one and practice a little bit. But I will talk you through it once we get there as well. So I will show you how to make one. Now we're going to start off with the main body of the sheep, particularly the face. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to start by making a magic ring. So go ahead and make one. And then we're going to make 8 stitches into the magic ring. And then to finish off my magic rings, I usually like to make a slip stitch into the first stitch of your magic ring, just so it's a nice circle. For the second row, we'll be doing an increase in each stitch. So you're going to do 8 increases in total. And what an increase means is basically just make 2 stitches into each stitch. So you're going to go into your next stitch, make a single crochet, and then again into that same stitch make a single crochet. That's just what an increase means, and you're going to do this 8 times. So this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I like to place a stitch marker into the last stitch that we did, just to make sure that for the next round I will remember that this is the last stitch that I have to make before finishing up the round. You should now have 16 stitches in total, and we're going to be moving on to round 3, which is just a stitch and then an increase all the way around. So 1 single crochet, then an increase, 1 single crochet, then an increase. You will continue this all the way around. Our third row is now complete and you should have 24 stitches in total. So for round 4 we will be making 2 stitches and then 1 increase, and you will repeat this 8 times to complete the round. So just once again, make 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, and then 1 increase. Then again 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1 increase. I'll do this 6 more times to complete the round. Your round is now finished and you should have 32 stitches. Then round 5 will be the last round of the face, and we'll be doing 3 stitches and then 1 increase. And you will repeat this 8 times for a total of 40 stitches. So we're going to make 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 3 single crochet, and then 1 increase. And then just repeat this all the way around again. The face is now finished, so I'm going to make a slip stitch into that first stitch and then fasten off. This is pretty much what it's looking like right now. This is also the best time to be inserting these safety eyes, so I'm just going to grab mine. And I will show you this one so you can see where I place them. I did them between round 1, 2, 3, 4. Between round 3 and 4 of the face. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So between these 2 rows. And then do one on the other side of the circle. 1, 2, 3 and 4, so like this. So we'll now be making the body, and you will have to attach your white yarn to the face. You can attach it anywhere, but personally I chose to attach it right where we ended with the face. And this round we'll be starting with the bubble stitches, and we're going to do a bubble stitch, then a single crochet, then a bubble stitch, and then a decrease. So I'm going to talk you through it, don't worry. Just attaching my stitch marker. So a bubble stitch is basically 4 unfinished double crochets into the same stitch. So you're gonna yarn over, go into your next stitch, yarn over again, and pull up a loop. And yarn over and go through the first 2 loops on your hook, so you should have 2 loops left. And again you're gonna yarn over, go into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then again yarn over and go through the first 2 loops. So now you have 3 loops on your hook. Then a third time yarn over, go into the same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then yarn over and go through the first 2 loops. And then for the 4th and final time, yarn over, go into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, then yarn over and go through the first 2 stitches. So that's your 4 unfinished double crochets. And now the last one we will actually finish. To secure all of these loops, you should have 5 on your hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yarn over, go through all of those loops. And that's your first bubble stitch completed. And after the bubble stitch, we'll make single crochet. Then again, we'll be making a bubble stitch. So yarn over into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops, then yarn over, go through the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 stitches. Third time, yarning over, going into the same stitch, yarning over, pulling up a loop, going through the first 2 loops now, and then the fourth and final time, yarning over, going through that loop, yarning over, pulling up a loop, going through the first 2 again, and then yarn over and go through all 5 of those loops. That's your second bubble stitch completed. And then into the next stitch, instead of a single crochet, we'll be making a decrease. So we'll be going into the next 2 stitches actually. And personally, I like to use invisible decreases, which means you'll only be going through the front loops. So you will only go through this loop, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then again into the next stitch, only front loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and go through all 3 of them to create a decrease. And we're going to repeat this pattern all the way around of doing a bubble stitch, single crochet, bubble stitch, decrease. So into the next stitch we're going to do a bubble stitch again. Then single crochet and a bubble stitch again. And then in the next stitch a decrease. Then once again a bubble stitch, a single crochet, a bubble stitch, and a decrease. Then a bubble stitch, single crochet, bubble stitch, and a decrease. So I think you get it by now, so let's finish up this round by ourselves and we'll meet back then. So this is what it should look like now. And you should have a stitch count of 32 stitches. And with bubble stitches, it's sometimes important to go in through the back side and kind of push them out a little bit to get that nice 3D effect. So for the rounds 7, 8 and 9, so the next 3 rounds, we'll be doing a bubble stitch followed by a single crochet. So I'm just going to place my stitch marker again. And then, like I said, we'll be doing a bubble stitch. And then a single crochet. And basically just repeat this pattern all the way around for the next 3 rounds. I just finished my 3 rounds and this is what it's looking like so far. So I just realized that I didn't look at my notes correctly. We actually had to do 5 rows of a bubble stitch followed by a single crochet instead of the 3 rounds. So not a big problem. We'll just now have to add 2 more rows before we can move on. So do those 2 more rows and I will meet you back there. And we'll now be starting to decrease a little bit. So what we're going to do is make 1 bubble stitch, then 1 decrease, then again 1 bubble stitch, 1 decrease, etc. all the way around. And at the end of the row you will have 2 stitches left. So you cannot do a bubble stitch and a decrease in the last 2 stitches. Instead you'll just do a bubble stitch and 1 stitch. So 1 bubble stitch, and then 1 decrease, and again 1 bubble stitch, and then 1 decrease. So you will have to do this all the way around. So like I said, at the end of the round 2 stitches left, so I will now just make a bubble stitch, and then 1 single crochet. I'll just replace my stitch marker and this is what it should be looking like now. And at the end of this row your stitch count should be 22. So for the next round we'll be doing the same thing again. So 1 bubble stitch and then 1 decrease. And you're going to do this all the way around again, but this time you will only have 1 stitch left at the end. So all the way around until you have 1 stitch left. And in that 1 last stitch you will do a bubble stitch. So just to get started again, 1 bubble stitch. And 1 decrease. And repeating this all the way around. And by the way, for your information, after you've done a decrease, make sure you really pull it tight, because with the decreases and bubble stitches it's very easy to create these gaps and you'll be wanting to do this as minimal as possible. So keeping your tension tight when doing those decreases will really help. Alright, I am almost finished with this round. Like I said, we have 1 stitch left and we're going to make a bubble stitch into it. So as you can see, the body is almost finished, which is why I'm going to be stuffing it. So we've come to the last round, and in this round we'll be doing the exact same thing again of doing a bubble stitch and then a decrease. So I will see you when you've done that. So we now finished the last round, and if you want, this is the time to put some more stuffing into your plushie. And you can really make it very chunky by putting in a lot, or make it less chunky by not putting in as much. That's totally up to you. So we're now going to fasten off, but leave a long tail because you still have to sew this hole closed. So take your needle, and now you can sew the hole closed by just going into the front loop of each stitch around and around until the hole is closed. And now the last thing that I will do is see if there's any gaps that I could maybe sew close, because like I mentioned before, when you do a bubble stitch followed by a decrease, it can create some gaps. Like I'm seeing one right here that's kind of big. So with this tail, I'm just going to go over there and just sew it closed so it looks a little bit nicer. And I'm gonna do this all the way around my plushie, just see if there's any big gaps that need some help. Alright, that's done. I think it looks a lot better right now. And I'm going to put this to the side so we can make the ears and the legs. So for the ears and the legs, we'll be taking the same color that we used for the face. And I'm going to start off with making the ears. And to do so, you will make a magic ring first. And then you will stitch 4 single crochets into that magic ring. And make a slip stitch into your first stitch. For round 2 of the ear, we'll be doing increases all the way around, so 4 increases in total. You should now have 8 stitches. So for the third round, we'll be doing a stitch followed by an increase, and again repeating this all the way around. So stitch, increase, and then repeat this all the way around. Then for the last round, we'll be doing 3 single crochets followed by an increase. And again, repeat this all the way around. So 1, 2, 3. Do an increase. And repeat this 2 more times to finish the round. The first ear is now finished, so you can make slip stitch into that first stitch and then fasten off. And make sure to leave a tail so you can sew it on to the body later. Now repeat all of those steps to make the second ear, and then we'll be moving on to the legs. For the legs, we'll be starting again with a magic ring. And we'll make 4 single crochets into this magic ring. pull it closed and do a slip stitch into that first stitch. For the second row of the legs, we'll be doing increases all the way around, so make 4 increases. Then for round 3, we'll be doing 1 single crochet followed by 1 increase. So 1 single crochet and 1 increase. Now make sure to turn your work the right side out, so this tail should be on the inside. And we'll now be doing the last row of the leg, which is just doing a single crochet all the way around. So this is the leg finished. You can now make a slip stitch into that first stitch and then fasten off. And make sure to leave something of a tail so you can sew the leg on. Now for the legs, we'll be making 4 of them. So repeat all of these steps 3 more times and then we're going to assemble the sheep. I finished all the legs and the ears and now it's time to sew everything onto the body. And I'm going to be starting with the ears. So let's put the legs away for a second. Now with the ears, I like to sew them on between the second and the third row of the bubble stitches, so right here. And I like to put them about 1 bubble stitch higher than the eye, so something like this. And when you sew on the ears, make sure that you have the right side turned out. So the side with the tail from your magic ring, you want that to be on the inside of the ear and the other side to be on the outside. And usually what I like to do is just attach it like this and kind of see if I like the placement. And if I do, I will do the same thing with the other ear before I fully attach them, just so I can see if it's about the same placement. And once you're happy with the placement, you can fully sew them on, and you're just going to be going into the little point of the ear here and 1 stitch to the right, 1 stitch to the left. You don't want to go to the outside of the ear. And once it's on, I also like to fold the ear a little bit closed and go in right through that first stitch, like here, to make sure that it stays in this shape. So with your yarn still attached, just go through one side and the other side, just like that. Alright, I sewed them on and this is what you want it to look like. Then we'll be moving on to the legs, so turn around your plushie. And make sure, like I said before, make sure that you have the right side out. So first up, I'm just gonna see where I think I would like the placement. And if you have it, you can use some big like knitting needles to put them in place, which is a little bit easier, but unfortunately, I don't have any. I think I like them like this. And it's a little bit difficult for me to give you a specific placement because yours might be a different size because of different tensions and how much you stuffed it. So that's a little bit difficult, but just one relatively to the back, one relatively to the front, and then on both sides. So once you're happy with your placement, you can sew them on. And I like to sew them on almost completely, just leaving a tiny gap and then putting in some filling through there to give them a little bit more structure. Alright, so like I said, leaving a bit of a gap and then putting some filling into the leg. Alright, I finished sewing on the legs and I will show you so you can kind of see the placement a little bit better. So the front legs, I started between the first and the second row of the bubble stitches. And then between the front and the back leg is about 2 bubble stitches. Now we're almost finished, but we still have to embroider on a face. So grab your black thin yarn. And personally, I will show you this one. I like to go in a little triangle and then a straight line beneath, and I go over it twice, so it's a little bit thicker and more obvious. So I'll just insert my needle in a random place in the face and bring it out on the left corner of that magic ring of the face. See, that's perfect to me. So then I will insert it right into the middle of the magic circle and bring it out in the right corner. And then again we'll put it in the middle and bring it downwards in a straight line. Then back to the middle and through the middle into that left corner again, going over those same stitches. So this is the shape that I have so far, and then we're going to go over each line again. So going through the middle, going through the right, going to the bottom, and to the middle again. And at the last one, we'll go into the middle again and bring it out to where the start of our black yarn is. And then simply tie a knot, tie another knot, cut off the yarn, not too close to the knot, but not too long either, just a little bit. And then push the ends to the inside with your needle. And this is what the face looks like. So that's pretty much your sheep finished. However, I like to do one finishing touch, which is tying some bows around the ears just to make it a little bit more cutesy. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing right now. And your little sheep is now finished. I really hope you like this tutorial. If there's any questions, please reach out to me. I'm very happy to help. And if you like this, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, because I definitely have more free patterns coming. Bye!